Welcome to the Village Vision podcast, where community collaboration and care converge. I'm Dr. Crystal Morrison, and I'm honored to be your host on this incredible journey. As a firm believer in the power of a united village, I'm thrilled to bring you inspiring stories, research, and projects that break down barriers in child and family care. Through heartfelt conversations with experts, advocates, and those with lived experiences, we'll showcase the transformative impact of collective support. So join me on the Village Vision podcast as we explore the remarkable collaborations that lead to better outcomes, foster a sense of community, and inspire action to improve care for ourselves and everyone around us.
And I say all that to say, I struggled with a sense of belonging for whether that be in my personal life and even in school. I knew what it's like to be an outsider. I knew what it's like to not be necessarily welcomed in. And I struggled with people pleasing because all I wanted to do was belong and fit. Now you think about that, and you think about our schools and how they're structured and all the hoops that our children have to go through to be able to feel that sense of belonging. They have to perform regardless of what it is they might be going through. And if they're going through something, they have to put that on the back burner in order to get the right grade, because the grades mean everything. It is a symbol of your success in our world, not how well we're teaching. We don't grade ourselves. We grade you. And so for me, my why is that I know what it's like to not belong, and I want to create spaces for our babies to belong, and that they don't have to perform for, they don't have to jump through hoops.
Bobby is passionate about education and driven by a mission to build disruptive educators. He works tirelessly to equip professionals with the skills and mindset needed to excel in their roles. Specializing in serving educators at all levels, Bobby's expertise shines when working with those serving in urban and culturally diverse communities. And I personally love all forms of disruption.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm going to go back to my first years in teaching to kind of tell the story.
Yeah.
I started in Camden, New Jersey. It was voted the most dangerous city to live in, poorest in our country at the time in which I started. And I walked into the classroom, and you think, you're so excited to teach and you're so excited to get into the classroom. But then when you are literally in front of kids, you realize how much your teacher prep program didn't really prep you for the things. I had to make learning actionable and real and connect with young minds. And while I was great on the rapport side and connection, I didn't know how to teach really. And I had to figure that out. And that is, our school systems are, if they're set to the default mode, they will dehumanize students, teachers, and families alike.
That's right.
And what we need to do, to your point, is to commit to a life, to an act, to a lifestyle of disruption. And so that's the work that I'm involved in now with Liberation Lab, is building disruptive educators through our pillars of culturally responsive teaching, social justice education, and restorative practices. And I've been able to see the growth and development of teachers who feel more empowered to take the risk, to dive in, and to do the things that are necessary to restore healing and humanity to our schools. And instead of fixating and focusing on what students can produce, I'm suggesting that we recognize that we focus on who they are. And from that place, we can begin to educate better. So when I say culturally responsive teaching, I'm asking educators to recognize that we all have a culture. We all come from a heritage, norms, values, traditions, beliefs. We all hold them. And more times than not in education, we will punish kids we fail to understand because we won't gather and understand and assume a learner stance in the culture of our students. With that comes an embedded belief that there is strength and wealth in that culture that I can learn and grow from.
Right.
Suggesting that the consequences do exist, but they exist with the child. We make the child a partner in the
Right.
progress so they can understand exactly what went wrong and how to make it right. And I want to end with this. Imagine what that would do with our world when we have people who won't take accountability in high places.
Oh, exactly.
When we can
Exactly.
have young people who actually take accountability, know how to remedy a situation and assess harm and do what's right to make those connections with people. And they understand that the community comes before them. So
Mhm.
that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah. That punitive punishment actually forces them further behind, and not just educationally, as you well know, but isolates them, disconnects them from that
Yes.
community, that sense of belonging, which is where we started this conversation. And that
Yes.
punitive damage just absolutely reinforces the cycle of
Yes.
not belonging and trauma and being isolated and not really having a safety net of protection around them.
You had time to send them to the principal's office. You had time for them to come back from the principal's office. And if that punishment wasn't severe enough for you, you had time to send them back. And I'm suggesting, why don't we invest the time to the root cause of said behavior so we can get off of this treadmill where we're running hard and not getting anywhere?
I agree. And I actually think by doing that, you unlock time in the
That,
day, right?
yes,
It
yes,
might take more time up front, but you in the end unlock time to actually be able to educate, right?
yes, absolutely.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about that we talked about a while back, and I asked you the question, what does your ideal classroom look
Mhm.
like? And what you told me has stuck with me in such a profound way. I'll say it in my words and you can correct it. But what you said was that classroom where kids can think about what they want to do and who they want to be as if isms didn't exist.
Yeah,
And that, yeah, it just really stayed with me as if
yeah,
all of the isms that we know exist, that we can't ignore, we can't pretend like they're not there.
yeah.
But that's your ideal classroom. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, Dr. Lee, Dr. Morrison. I think when we, I frame liberation in the form of a question. And
Yeah.
that is who would you be if it weren't for misogyny, if it weren't for racism, if it
Mhm.
weren't for these systems of oppression, if it weren't for power differential and the like. So when I frame isms, that's what I'm talking about. All the
Exactly.
things that put one versus the other, compare and contrast, all the things that divide us, right? What would
Mhm.
you be if it wasn't for that? Because if we don't inspire kids with a dream, then we're asking them to perform without fuel, without anything to move them forward, right?
Mhm.
We want education to be intrinsically motivated, but we don't give students the opportunity to dream
Mhm.
big and then give them the tools necessary to accomplish that dream.
In order to really make this work and in order to really disrupt the status quo around education, we really have to be disrupting our communities and organizations that are involved in schools tangentially in some way. Or there's so many opportunities for this message to be shared with other professionals, with nonprofit leaders, with community leaders.
When we make the problems of others our own, when I personalize the problem of someone else, that means I need to get to work dismantling said problem, right?
Mhm.
I know that misogyny isn't affecting me. But if I personalize it, then I do the work necessary to disrupt on behalf of someone else. And that's truly what community is. I want to call all your listeners, one, recognize your community.
But thank you again, Bobby, for joining us today on the Village Vision podcast. I'm so grateful that you shared your story, your personal story that's often difficult. It can be
Yeah.
difficult, and also your experience and the work that you're doing today with our listeners.
It is an honor to be able to do so. And I hope someone's encouraged by it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Village Vision podcast. I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights from our conversation today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, leave a review, and share all the things. But thank you. Thank you for being a part of the Village Vision podcast. Take care, and let's keep shining a light on the power of community, collaboration, and care.